This would be the 2025 Infiniti QX80, the first entirely new version of this SUV in 14 years. That is about twice as long as the average life cycle in today's auto industry. Quite astonishing that the last one lasted for as long as it did. Now, of course, there were some updates along the way. Some of them were pretty significant, including an entire name change. But the point being that it was the same generation for 14 years. So this new one is a pretty big deal. It's also pretty big. Now, it's actually not much bigger than the previous version of the QX80, but the space inside has been optimized. And I will say, when you take a look at this autograph, this top trim, the one that I am driving, with this black roof, I find it actually doesn't look quite as large as the last one because all that body color is below the windows and then it's black from the kind of belt line up, and it does make it look just a little smaller. This thing is not small, it is still a massive SUV, but it doesn't quite look as imposing as the previous generation. But the space inside has been optimized, a bit more cargo room. The legroom in the second and third rows, not terrible. I wouldn't want to be stuck in that third row for too long, but I can fit in there. But the big story, of course, is up here. Let's actually start with what's under the hood. No more V8. It's a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged V6 engine. It now makes 450 horsepower to go with 515 pound-feet of torque. To give you guys just a bit of context, that's 50 more horsepower and something like 103 pound-feet more torque than the V8 used to make. That is a ton. Now, of course, it doesn't feel the same. It's never going to replicate what a V8 can do, but I actually do really like this engine. This cruise that we've been doing from Vancouver up towards Whistler, it's just really smooth, really relaxed. It doesn't feel like it's working hard. You're not going to notice that drop in displacement and cylinder count. I'm telling you right now, I know a lot of people are skeptical of the switch from V8s to smaller engines like this one, but there is nothing wrong with this V6. Now, this hill climb right now is as good of evidence as any at just how much guts this engine has. No issues whatsoever. It pulls pretty hard. It doesn't sound all that bad either. I kind of dig the way it sounds when you really get your foot into it. It works with a 9-speed automatic transmission as well as a 4-wheel drive system. But overall, just like the last one, I do find it drives a little bit smaller than you might expect. It's not as truck-like as some other SUVs this size. It's super smooth. The steering actually feels pretty good, and so does just about everything else in here. Now, I am driving the top trim, so of course some of my observations are going to be about this one specifically, but there is some good stuff across the 3 trim lineup in Canada, starting with both adaptive dampers and air springs, standard on all 3 trims, and the system does a great job of absorbing the imperfections that you are going to encounter in everyday driving. Really not noticing that big, heavy set of wheels pulling at the suspension too much. Yeah, the occasional pressure crack and pothole you will feel kind of reverberate through the body, but not that bad. This thing feels as luxurious as it looks when you're out cruising on the open road. And that's what we are doing today. Now, getting back to that engine, don't expect this thing to be especially miserly just because Nissan and Infiniti decided to ditch the V8. So this thing is rated to burn something like 13.8 liters per 100 kilometers combined, which isn't that much better than the V8. That thing was good for 15.2. So yeah, you're saving a bit of fuel, but not a ton. The big proof is the highway driving. This thing's rated for 12.2 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway, and that V8 was good for 12.4. Yes, I know smaller engines have to work harder to maintain momentum, but the point being, you're really not going to see a ton of savings at the pumps, and this thing still calls for premium grade gas, but premium grade is a great way to describe just about everything in here, all kinds of technology. You've got these massive display screens up here on the dash, a separate touchscreen down just below for your climate controls that I'm not entirely in love with. It is a haptic system, so you really do have to press to feel when you've hit something, but that doesn't change the fact that you don't know what you're poking at the way you would know with buttons and dials. You can have that muscle memory. That is not the case here. There's also massaging seats up here, and get this, you can choose between 14 or 24 speaker stereos depending on the trim that you choose. This one has the 24 speaker system, and I gotta say, very crisp and clean audio coming from this system. I really do like it. And the infotainment, not so bad. It is a Google built-in system. There's wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so you can keep your phone hooked up. But if you don't want to use that, you can use the integrated Google Maps. There's also a bunch of cool camera views that I gotta say are a little bit gimmicky, but there are some nice touches. So you have this 170-degree forward view. So if you're pulling up and there's, I don't know, let's say another vehicle at the end of your driveway, you can hit this little icon, you can pull up this widescreen view, and we'll actually look around that vehicle for you so you can see if there's another vehicle or a cyclist, and that is very handy. And all of those views can be geotagged. So instead of remembering to fumble for them every time, you can hit this little pin, and that way the vehicle will know every time you get to that point, it will pull up that view on the screen, and I really do like that. Now there's also hands-free highway driving assist that you can activate, or you can just use the regular adaptive cruise control. That is a pretty good system. I do like Nissan and Infiniti's kind of Pro Pilot assist system, they call it. It works fairly well, but looking beyond the tech, even in here, the materials do feel pretty good. There are some nice touches. The leather on this seat, very supple. I like this wood grain on the dash as well as the doors. Some of the other stuff I like, this suede headliner. Some of the stuff I'm not in love with. This leather dash pad, it's not all that nice. Some of the plastics in here too, just not quite up to snuff for a six-figure SUV, and that brings us to the pricing. 3 trims to pick from here in Canada. The base trim, it's $105,000 before freight and tax, and then you have that mid-grade, that's $114,000, and this one I'm driving is $125,000 before freight, taxes, and fees that include that luxury tax. So this thing does not come cheap. Yes, it is competitively priced next to something like a Cadillac Escalade or a Jeep Grand Wagoneer or a Lexus LX, but that is still a lot of money. Look, that is a lot of money, and whether it is worth the price of admission or not is obviously up to the shoppers in this segment, and it is pretty niche. Infiniti isn't selling these the way Nissan is selling Rogues, that is for sure. But if you're looking to sweeten the pot, this is an SUV that has space for all kinds of kids. It can tow something like 8,500 pounds, and there are cool features for passengers in the back. So the third row, seats are heated. I like that. The second row in this top trim, massaging seats. There's also a biometric cooling system. So there are sensors in the ceiling that will detect if passengers back there are starting to heat up, and it will automatically bring the temperature down. That is very cool. Yeah, it's a little bit gimmicky, but it's the kind of stuff that sets this SUV apart. There are lots of showstoppers in this segment, but I gotta say, I think after a 14-year wait, Infiniti has made it worth every single one of those years. It has really stepped its game up here. This feels different while being kind of classically the same as it was before, just thoroughly modernized. That is exactly what you want to see. If you are shelling out for an SUV like this, check this new QX80 out.